are expressing concern. We are expressing very serious concerns. Already what we are looking at is that the royalties, the additional interest, and the stake for Esploco, GMPC subsidiary, has completely been wiped out in this new amendment, the AGM amendment.
Take me through the figures.
Let me take you through the figures, and you should really look at it and get worried. The royalty is 10%. The amendment is 10%. The carried interest, obviously, we have a new law, Act 919, which we passed, which now requires that the floor should be 15%. So the floor is 15%. But the additional interest has been cut. The old agreement in the AGM, it says 15%. This one, they are, in this document we have, they are making it 3%. Remember that the only time you even trigger additional interest is when there has been a discovery, and Ghana can now exercise its right to buy more stake, to increase our stake. So what has informed this decision? To basically reduce our power to buy more stake. How do we say now in the new amendment that you want to take the 24% and make Esploco zero in this agreement? Now, altogether, if you look at it, 48% of the old agreement,
The old agreement, Ghana would have had 48%.
43%. It is now being reduced to 18% altogether. And that is really a cause for worry. I think somebody has to come and explain to the people of Ghana how this is an asset that God has given us. The only reason we are bringing these companies is because we don't have the technology. So what we can do is basically negotiate and have some good terms so we can have a little bit of a stake. How we can basically come and reduce an agreement that has already been signed.
And the minority will not support this agreement?
No, if it is what it is that I've explained, there's no way we can support it. We can never be on the side of big business against the ordinary Ghanaian. We can't. We will fight for Ghanaians.
The documents the minority are calling for, I have a full complement, but I didn't get it early enough. What the majority is suggesting is that let's listen to the minister. Let him make a presentation on the purpose and the sections of the agreement that needs to be reviewed, and then we can even suspend the meeting and continue tomorrow morning. And if you look at the volume of the documents that we are talking about, it's something that we could review and then re-sit tomorrow morning and address the issue. And some of the minority who are making noise, they were actually in the ministry, so they actually know the content of the contract already. So it's just politicking and normally trying to find a way to put some spokes in the way of government business. But government has to run. Sometimes, in fact, we are we are on recess and we've been recalled. And this is an urgent matter that needs to be addressed. What we are saying is that let's listen to the minister today, let's review this thing, and then tomorrow morning we can sit and do. Nobody is seeking to do anything untoward. And many times, you have been here, many times we do some of these things. But nobody is going to do a shoddy job or has anything to hide. It's a very transparent process. Everybody is going to have copies of the contract before we continue.
Has any compromise been reached yet in the meeting?
I think that the leadership are still discussing the matter, and I'm very
it's more like a stalemate as to whether you should continue.
I'm very hopeful. Many times we get to this stage and we find a way, a center point, and so I'm very hopeful.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and you've just been listening to Emmanuel Kofi Amabua and also Issa Fuseni, both MPs who were speaking for and against what appears to have happened in Parliament. Well, it's a sealed deal now because the renegotiation or the review terms of the AGM Petroleum deal has been sealed and delivered. The minority is saying that Ghana stands to lose as much as $10 million, $10 billion, right? $10 billion in the end, because this government is shortchanging the Ghanaian. They say that in the old terms, what the Mahama administration signed with AGM, the contract terms provided for a stake, Ghana's stake was in total 43% stake in the whole deal, oil deal, 43% stake. But now with this review, Ghana's stake is 18%, and that we stand to lose $10 billion. How exactly is that? My guests are seated. We'll discuss this and the Bust Oil Dirty Fuel Report. The committee that was set up to investigate the matter has suggested, or actually said, that the deal smacks of criminality. So we'll do these two important issues, including Great Coast debts, which we hear simply may be doomsday lurking. Is that what it is? And then we'll reconstitute our panel for the next discussion on the Saglime housing project. $200 million voted for a project, housing project, affordable housing project of 5,000 houses, is it? And then the government reviewed it and reviewed the number of houses down to 1,200 only. And yet we are told that the amount stood at the same $200 million. It does appear that in the end, we seem to have paid even more than what we were to pay. Why is that so? Some things just don't add up. Weird, bizarre, but we should get the explanations to all of these. So my guest during the first segment of this discussion, Abdul Malik Kubaku, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Adam Muta Wakilu is MP Damongo and ranking member, Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. Dr. Eric Odrosai is governance expert and a lawyer. Kofi Bento, senior vice president, Imani Africa, and a lawyer. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right. So we start with you, Muta Wakilu. You are the ones who have been leading the charge in Parliament and insisting that the country is being shortchanged by the renegotiated AGM petroleum deal. Can you explain to us how you come by the conclusion that we are set to lose $10 billion because of the renegotiation? How you come to tell us that instead of the original 43 interest or stake that Ghana had, all that has been whittled down to 18%. And if that has happened, are there not reasonable explanations to all that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning to our cherished viewers. I'm most grateful, my senior brothers. Truly, before we went to recess, we were told by 29th of April, we'll be back to consider the vigilante bill. So all members of parliament knew that we're coming back on 29th to consider the vigilante bill.
Vigilante companies and companies law.
Yeah, but the vigilante one was the key because we were pressurized to even pass it before we went on recess. Only in 92, that was 28th of April, around 8 o'clock, a friend called me that, oh, we have to consider a renegotiated agreement. And I said, this is the first time that within 5 days, we've been asked, I'm getting information that an agreement of this nature will be coming on the floor and will be considered and passed. Because the minimum number of weeks that a petroleum agreement spent in Parliament is 4.
4 weeks?
4 weeks, minimum.
And this time you used 1 week?
1 week. Even the 1 week, I would say 2 days. Because it was laid on Monday. We got the documents on Thursday morning. Because the documents were brought on Tuesday, 11 p.m. So, and you know, Wednesday was a holiday. So majority of our colleagues got it on Thursday. And this Thursday, 2 o'clock was when we were to consider it. And what surprises me also is that the minister and the deputy, they were both at ASEP and even criticized government for considering a petroleum agreement within 4 weeks. and that we needed to take into consideration stakeholder consultations. Now in charge wants Parliament to approve it within 5 days. Now, what is the reason they came to us?
Okay, so it's been done.
Yes.
Yesterday, was it?
Yes.
Yesterday, this thing was done.
It was.
And it's been approved.
It has been approved.
By a voice vote of acclamation, is it?
Yes.
Okay, by majority.
Majority.
Okay.
And that is where I'll come. Majority and all that. I stated emphatically that it should be majority decision.
Consensus?
No,
Majority?
I stated. That is why I said I stated emphatically.
Yeah, but I'm asking what was the overall?
That's why I said I'll come to that.
Okay, sir.
I'm very, very, so that when I get to that, we'll look at the Hansard, what negotiation had gone on, and whether it is 18% or not, I'll touch on that. They came under Section 20 of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, 919 of 2016. And with your permission, let me read. Review of terms and conditions. It says, 21, the terms of a petroleum agreement may be reviewed by the parties to the agreement where there is a material change in the circumstances that prevails at A, the time the agreement was executed, B, the last review of the agreement. So for you to initiate any review of a petroleum agreement, there must be a material change. So the minister must justify why a material change. And the renegotiation, the material change could be positive to us or negative. And I'll give you some instances. Where there is you expected a discovery within a certain, let's say, 500 barrels. But all of a sudden you realize that it's about 10 billion barrels. It's material. And government must request for renegotiation. It's material. So that you up your fiscal regimes. 2, if you expected 500 barrels, and at the end of the day, it's 100, the economics change. And the operator will realize that the cost involved will be far more than what is the returns. So he will call, it's material, he will call for renegotiation and ask government to reduce the fiscal terms. But in this case, what the minister had said in the report is that ACE had acquired hers and made a discovery. The AGM block is owned by Petrica, which is same ACE. And that block is very close to the hers block. So they have the vision of doing an integrated development. If there is a discovery in that one, they want to do an integrated development. And that there will be operational challenges. And as a result, they are triggering renegotiation.
You say this is not a material change?
It's not material.
Why is it not?
And I'll come to that.
There was a block belonging to HES.
Yes.
Which is no more for HES, right? Is that
ACE acquired it.
ACE has acquired it.
It was the discovery was made in 2013.
Right.
Seven blocks.
That's when the original agreement was signed.
In 2006.
Right.
No, I'm talking of HES block. The recent discovery that ACE announced is very close, the sheer boundary with this current block.
Okay.
So I've acquired this block. I've made, there is discovery in 2013 on that block. I've drilled more wells and announced more. I have this other block. And I think that I should integrate the blocks.
Okay.
So that I can treat them like one. And as a result, it's so material that I want to trigger Section 20. And by triggering it, you rather want government to reduce the fiscal regimes.
Okay.
That is not material.
And so these two entities, ACE and AGM, whose activities require an integration, all belong to the parent company, Petrica, right?
Yes.
So they are able to come in to say, this belongs to us, so we want to put everything together. Rather than do it separately.
Separately.
And you say that is not a material change?
The material change is for ACE. If they think that they can take advantage of, you don't use it to ask government to reduce the fiscal terms. whether the fiscal term reduce or not, you can integrate. It's the sharing, because the flow can be calculated. You can calculate to know how much is coming from this block, that how much is coming from this block. You can do the proportion. It is not material. When we pressurize the minister, he used another excuse, which is just flawed. And yesterday, he said it on the floor, that because prices, as at the time 2013, when we entered into this agreement, the prices were high. Now, crude oil price has fallen, and as a result, it's material. I said in 2015, when prices dropped to $28 per barrel, Tallow should have asked for renegotiation and use it as material. So that is not material. And we find that that is just bulldozing your way to go through. And this is not the first time ACE had requested for renegotiation. In June, the former minister, Ajako, rejected this same request on the basis that they cannot use this as an excuse of a material change to change the fiscal regimes.
So what did you eventually, why did you eventually agree? Since you were opposed to this and said this was a sell-off, it was a betrayal of Ghana, why did you eventually now agree in Parliament that this should be approved by consensus?
Let me come. When we had our arsenals as a minority, and as minority, we listened to both sides. Eventually, we're called. And we had three-step approach to against this. We could walk out, we could ask for head counts, we could trigger other things, 268. Then they said, okay, walk out. For you not walking out and head count, we're going to increase the additional interest by 5. So it has been increased from by 7. It has been increased from 3% to 10%. And what they needed was, it should be consensus. We ended up by saying that there will be nowhere we'll have consensus on this agreement. So the negotiation, we pushed to get 7% more in addition, forgoing walkout, forgoing headcounts, and the rest. But in respect to it being consensus was not agreed, and we made it clear to them.
Okay, clarify for me. You say that for the additional interest, is it?
That is the additional interest. Which it was reduced to 3%.
It was reduced to 3.
Yes.
It is no more 3.
It's no more 3. It has increased to
7%.
To 10.
To 10%.
So 7% more.
Because originally it was 15%.
It was 15%, reduced to 3.
Okay.
And we opposed, and we had our arsenals, and we must negotiate. And during that, we managed to push it to 10. But as to whether it should be consensus or majority decision, it was made clearly to the majority that there's no way.
So where there were substantial changes, let's look at it this way. Royalties was 10%, as at the agreement signed in 2013.
Yes.
Today, as we speak, the royalties remains 10%.
Yes.
GMPC carried interest was 10%. Yeah. It is now 15%. Yeah. So there's some improvement there. The additional interest used to be 15%. Yeah. And government was asking that it should now be renegotiated to 3%.
3.
You managed to push it to 7%.
To 10.
To 10%.
Yes.
Right. There was a GMPC Esploco, which is supposed to have been 24%, right? Which is now 0%. Am I correct?
0%.
Okay. So ultimately, we had a 43% stake.
Yes.
And you say has been reduced to 15% stake.
To 18.
18% stake.
Yeah.
This is why you did not agree to its consensus decision.
We believe that we are giving too much for that block.
But I thought what's happened yesterday, was a consensus.
That is what I'm coming on. That is what I'm explaining.
Okay.
That we needed, we have our arsenals, walkout, head count, and the rest. So they have to invite us. So we said, increase it to 10%. It was increased. Exploco, we needed a minimum of 10. They said no. Exploco, no. We got to 5. They said no. We said, forgetting the 7% addition, we will forgo the walkout. But as for majority decision, it was definite. So they were asked to go and amend the agreement. So if you take this agreement and you read, it's different. I should have brought the other one.
Okay.
So when they amended it, we didn't have copies of the amendment. It was on the floor. The chairman tried amending it. And on the floor, he said consensus. And as ranking, which I knew we didn't agree on consensus, I made it clear to the speaker, I want it to be in the hazard, and anybody can go and get the hazard and go through. I made it clear that this agreement is by majority decision.
That was after the fact. Was that not belated?
It is not belated. It is very important for me to register because history will judge us one day. History will judge us one day.
So what was the ritual that sealed the deal? Was it majority decision making by voting, or it was consensus decision making?
We never took part in the vote. Like we sat down, nobody said yeah or no. That tells you that we did not agree to it.
How were we able to determine that? That you sat in the chamber and then a vote was called for and then you were quiet. It's a vote by voice.
It's not only by vote. It's also by the hazard. It's also by the hazard.
So Parliament's record will show
that
it was
the ranking
majority and not consensus.
The ranking member, I'm very clear, in my contribution, made it clear that that agreement was not consensus.
No, that's not my question. Will parliamentary records show that the deal was sealed with majority vote or consensus agreement?
That is what I cannot here take a decision, because by reading Parliament record, you read the contribution of each member.
Okay.
Do you get my point? Yeah. You don't just take the hazard and you go to the conclusion.
All right.
You must take step by step and read the conclusion. At the end of the day, you take a decision.
Okay.
In fact, if other people think it's consensus on the hazard, they realize that the ranking member made it clear that is by majority decision.
Okay.
And I'm not included in any consensus that was agreed.
Okay.
Because I want to put those facts very right.
Okay, I think you can pause here. Kwaku, can we attempt to settle the question of how this deal was sealed?
Well, the records will show that was by consensus, no matter what he says. The report being presented, the committee will be saying that this report we are advising, or there's a way they put it, recommending that it should be adopted by consensus, and that's what will be. I see his point. He's trying to look into the future and give people maybe evidence of what he said, perhaps either for himself or on behalf of his side. But the truth of the matter is that they ended up saying they are adopting the report by consensus. That's what it means. And I don't think we should debate that.
And to adopt the report by consensus would be a recommendation from the committee.
Yes, and the House does that. So the House approves it.
Okay.
In that sense, it stands in the name of the House. I mean, sometimes it's difficult for people to understand some of these intricacies of the legislative branch of government and how it works. There are people who have even argued for perhaps amendments to the standing orders and all sorts of things. But it's another subject matter.
Okay.
If we are not careful.
The committee's report, do we have it here? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did the committee's report recommendation
that's a good point.
provision say? Okay, so the recommendation, conclusion and recommendation, this is the committee's report. The committee has thoroughly scrutinized the agreement and is of the view that the renegotiated terms offer incentives for the contractor to increase investment in the petroleum exploration and production activities in the contract area, which would inure to the benefit of the state through taxes, GNPC's initial participation interest of 15%, and job creation. The committee further recommends that the Minister for Energy should come and brief the House on steps taken to implement the committee's recommendations within 6 months after approval. The committee, by a majority decision, accordingly recommends to the House to adopt the report and ratify the resolution. The amendment number 1 to the Petroleum Agreement among the governments of the Republic of Ghana, the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, Exploration and Production Ghana Limited, and AGM Petroleum Ghana Limited in respect of South Deepwater Tunnel Contract Area in accordance with Article 268 of the 1992 Constitution, subject to its recommendations. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Emmanuel Akwesi Jemfi, who is the Chairman, Mines and Energy Committee, Dr. Makesibe Yeboah, Chairman, Finance Committee, Mrs. Joanna A.S. Ejay, Clerk, Mines and Energy Committee, Miss Evelyn Brefo Boating, Clerk, Finance Committee. So by the showing of the recommendations of the committee, it was supposed to be a majority decision. Was there a change to lead to a consensus?
That is the next step I spoke about. It came to the floor. This is what we were to take. And that is why the negotiation, I said,
fantastic.
We had various tools. Walk out. And they said we shouldn't walk out.
So you got 7%.
So as a result, we said we got 7%.
You got 7% not to walk out and to do consensus or what?
Not to. Walking out has its implications. They were, or head count has its implications. So they were willing to forego, to increase it to 10 for us not to take these activities, these actions. However, when it came to the majority, it was concluded that it will remain majority decision.
Okay, thank you.
Now, on the floor, they have to make the corrections, the chairman. In making the corrections, they now said consensus. And that is why I felt that that wasn't what we agreed together. And I have to make my point clear.
Having heard what you just said, what do you think? That the majority was seeking to, as it were, steal the votes, so to speak?
Well, I have to be very honest with you. I haven't cited this report.
Okay.
But it's good that it's been read, at least some portions. But you see, beyond the report, something happened in the House. You see, it's easy to come outside the House into the public space and rationalize what your position was. But the records, this is a House of records. The Hansard will capture the entirety of the proceedings and the decisions that were taken. Our friends, and that's my good brother, has told us that they were able to negotiate to extract some concessions. That's the beauty of legislative deliberation. By extracting some concessions, they actually were coming on board. And that is where the consensus and animal comes in. They had an incentive to actually go along with this. Look, you had a choice of voting against it. Am I wrong? You had a choice of walking out. And in any case, you've done it before. All sides have used boycott or walkouts as a weapon in the arsenal. And nobody was going to be able to take that away from the minority. Who? Nobody. They had it. It's within their preserve. They didn't exercise that. They also didn't vote against it. The standing orders allowed them. And to insist even on division, head count as well as division. He knows that. It's such a very critical issue. The kind of emotions and positions you've taken in the public domain. We want now to hold a press conference and give people the mathematics, that's the statistics, that show that this is a sellout. I don't see why in the House, where you have your strength in terms of your parliamentary representation, you couldn't register that for history to know. But you choose the public space to come and register your protest. At the end of the day, you have acquiesced. That's the point I am making. In spite of what he said, which will be recorded by Hansard, the truth of the matter is that you are telling us that you were able to extract concessions, which gave you an incentive to eventually go along in consensus form. I don't think I even want to waste too much time on that, because see, really it's not a substance.
Okay. Yeah, so let's get to the argument. Are they right in saying that this was a sellout?
Well, you
From
see,
43% stake by Ghana to 18% stake.
well, you see,
No, 43.
you know something.
15 plus 24.
The 10 and 15 automatically is taken out.
Yeah, so
The
it used
balance,
to be that. It
no,
used
the
to be.
balance is now being shared among the partners.
What I mean is, what was originally negotiated was 49.
No, that's what I'm explaining.
Okay.
When a petroleum agreement comes, the carried and participation interests are critical. So if it is 100%, so 10% is taken out, 15% is taken out, the balance left is 75%. This is now what is shared among the partners.
And we took 24 of that.
So 24% of
The
75
was taken.
is 18.
That's the percentage.
Yes. Now, if you add it to the 10, 28, and to the 15, you get 43.
Okay. Yes, Kweku.
You know what? And again, I keep saying this, and people say I should stop. I have no technical competence in this area, but I have been such a close watcher of
And you
that
have
industry.
documentary competence.
And I have a history. I am a research student relative to this area. And sometimes I see some of the same old stories being replayed over and over again. Of course, there's a new dynamic. When we discovered oil in commercial quantities, 2007 was it? Some thought it was Adringo, but it was actually oil. We did, the chemistry, the dynamic changed in the sense that we had now some strength in terms of negotiations, in terms of the fiscal terms and all those things. That's true. But there is also the point that any time a petroleum agreement is signed, in spite of the fact that we are now more or less, we've de-risked a lot of areas, there's still the possibility that you would go in there and get nothing. There's still the possibility.
Yeah, but that's not the case we are talking about.
No,
in,
I'm coming.
in this
I'm
situation.
coming. I'm
Right.
talking. We're looking at the specifics, aren't we?
Sure.
For instance, the question of the 3%, 10%, 15%. It's an additional interest, isn't it? Am I right? The 10% now, the one
It's additional.
additional interest. It was 3%. You negotiated and got it to 10%. Originally, it was 15%.
Right.
Now, truly, that is what additional interest means. You pay for it. When, yes, at production, when there's commercial discovery, you pay for it. Question to ask, Exploco, and that was the weapon, the instrument we were using. If you are managing those things, you are going into the blocks to buy and order, you ask, would your financial exposure that it entails help you to make progress or not? It's money. You ask yourself, do you have the money? Do you have the capital? Assuming the discovery comes. Because right now there's no discovery, so it's easy to put it down 15, 10. It's okay. It looks good. 15 is better than 10. 10 is better than 3. That's fine. That's the mathematics. And it's easy when you throw that in the public space, and those who don't have the technical and financial understanding, it's easy to say that 15 is better than 10, so why are you going to 10? But the question to ask is whether that facility, that entity is financially capable, assuming the oil is discovered eventually. How much is going in there? Maybe $2-3 billion is the investment. So when the time comes for you to pay for the additional interest, you calculate it. How much are you going to pay? If it's about $500-600 million, do you have it? If no discovery is made, those who invested the billions, they go without a peso. That's the law. They go. Exploco had done some seismic, I think, investigations and things, so they had some data too. I don't know if you are aware they've been paid off. They went into an agreement for $30 million or so. I think they've been paid $20 million. So, yes, they've been paid.
It's not Exploco that was paid. Exploco paid.
No.
It's not Exploco, it's GMPC.
GMPC.
Paid what?
It's not paid to Exploco, it's GMPC.
To Hess when they were leaving.
You wait. When I finish, I'll give you a receipt. I'll give you a receipt.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing the...
That's right.
No, I'm saying that it wasn't paid to Exploco.
No.
GMPC acquired the data
Yes.
in 2009.
Yes.
30 million. In the agreement.
But they have paid back
in the
$20 million.
agreement,
I have
they
the
paid
receipt
20
here.
million to GMPC, and they had honored it.
Okay, so
That's what I'm
you
saying.
are saying they paid back.
They paid back.
Okay.
And
So-
I'll tell you the risk.
So that's the point. You see, this AGM block has been idle. They have the PA, but it's been idle. 20 months after the, is it ITOS ruling, it's still idle. This new group, these new owners, they are going to drill two wells in the original agreement plus 2 additional. I hear people say, because it's close to the Hess block, there is the possibility or probability that there is oil there. There's also the possibility or probability that you hit nothing. And if you hit nothing, they go with their investment just like that. It's true. That's the law. If
The technique...
that's the law.
If you like... No,
The
no,
investor-
it's not exactly true here. We found something, so they'll bill it to
No,
what
no,
we
no.
found.
I'm talking of the
depending on how
new
it's arranged.
discoveries. If I invest,
Okay.
if the investor comes to invest, he brings, now of course we've developed some capacity. So we've formed the Exploco to also join. But I'm talking of the investor. If he brings 1 billion, invest, he doesn't find oil, he goes.
Yes.
We take the data. The data becomes our property. But the investor, we are not obliged to pay him the money that he invested back. Is that not the point I'm making? Are you challenging that?
No, but I want to say something just for a second, just
Please
to
do.
help. I don't mean to contradict you, and I'm sorry. You see, there have been some fines already in that area. Depending on how the agreements are structured. Today we're talking about consolidation and so many
Fines
things.
by
I'm
who?
coming.
No, fines by who?
General ACA. All right.
Oh, see,
Yes.
AGM
So,
block is different
let me
from
finish.
ACA.
My point is, it is.
ACA has now,
Oh.
but yeah, AGM, their block was
So-
different. And there's been no
It's
discovery
your
there.
point, but I was just saying, depending on how the arrangements are made, you may be able to bill some of these expenditures to some of the fines that you've already made. You can explain. So these things are complex. My point is, if you come, you don't get anything, you go, you lose your money.
Thank you.
But if
That's
you've
what I
gotten
was saying.
one, if you've gotten one,
But they haven't gotten anything.
so Uncle, what I'm saying is,
AGM
Okay.
anyway,
has not made
so-
anything.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Listen,
Go ahead.
Let's have quickly proceed.
Kofi,
And
I
so
just-
the question
I
we
know
are
you are
seeking-
more
No,
the question
competent
we are
in this
seeking to
area.
You
answer,
finish your
Kofi.
point.
Yeah.
The question we are seeking to answer is, by section 21, a revision or renegotiation must only be premised upon material change, right? The question is, seeking to consolidate your activities, can that constitute material change? The minority say no. So the contract should not be renegotiated to the disadvantage of Ghana.
Yeah, but
You are making the point for the purposes of informing Ghanaians that there is no disadvantage.
if you look at the mathematics, just the figures, you might think there's a disadvantage. And that's why I try to use the Exploco thing to illustrate my point. That you are talking 15%. 15% in an area being exploited, no discovery has happened. That 15% can only be triggered when there's a commercial discovery. And you pay for that. So you ask yourself that question, the fundamental question. Are you financially capable? That is why, ask yourself, why didn't Exploco trigger the 10% that they had earlier with the Aka one?
If government says no, you can't do it.
No, the money was made available 2015. Why didn't they trigger it? Because they didn't have the money. The budget was there. They weren't using some of those things for power. Yes.
Absolutely.
No, I'm telling you the truth.
And Exploko is literally GMPC.
It is. It is their, let's say, their production wing.
Department, so to speak.
And there was budgetary provision for that 10%, which is not today's subject anyway. But I'm saying, the question is, why didn't they trigger it? It was due to financial challenges. That is what it was. Otherwise, why didn't they trigger it? Answer me.
Oh, you want me to answer?
Yes. Why didn't they trigger it?
Once he wants me to analyze.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't say analyze. I say answer me.
The car power.
No.
What did we pay?
First, I'm talking of the 10%
Yeah,
budgetary provision made.
Why
was it not triggered?
In 2013, when Hayes discovered 7 wells, to have 5 of them oil and 2 gas, there was a famine because by then, Hayes had 90% shares.
Good.
So needed to do what we call a famine. Look, oil, fuel trade came in, then 10% for us. But you know, GMPC work programs are not approved immediately. Normally it should be approved, let me count, it should be approved by December, January, but mostly takes in. By the time we approve 47 million, these ITLOS issues had come.
But ITLOS was there when fuel trade and look what oil farmed in. Exploko did not farm in. Why?
No, let me come. So when we were waiting, when there is a trigger, we acquire. The trigger came when the ITLOS ruling came.
But
then we did
fuel trade
but
didn't wait for the trigger?
Agenda, no. They had acquired before this trigger. You have to be very careful. GMPC cannot acquire without parliamentary approval. If parliamentary approval 2015 delays, and the ITLOS ruling boundary dispute comes, there is no way they can pay. They have to wait. After the ITLOS had ruled that 69% of that block was at that dispute, and petroleum activities should halt. Very important to note that. Now, in 2017, when the ITLOS ruling favored Ghana, we expected this to be exercised. But the minister gave an speech, car power. It is not true that the money was spent on car power. Guarantee is not an expenditure. And in 2017,
that money was there.
KK Sapon came that they needed that 100 million back, and they will bring Litasco to provide the guarantee. So they provide. They brought in Litasco.
It doesn't answer my question. Why didn't Exploko trigger that thing? The GMPC gave the parent company guarantee. They did that one. The other one was to pay for it.
GMPC
provision was made for it. You did not trigger it. That's a fact.
It happened. The triggering should happen in 2017 after the ruling. But you see the philosophy of this government.
So the answer is it's a government decision.
It's a government decision,
That's
not to acquire.
It's a government
decision.
Let
me tell you, any government, GMPC,
you didn't trigger
as of 2016, had a positive balance in their bank accounts of over $180 million. Are you getting my point? So saying that that money was used is inaccurate. In 2017, they had $121 million.
So why didn't
So even if that 100 million was seated somewhere, which they collected back in 2017, that amount could have been used. 2018, their positive balance was $59 million. So it was a government decision. And if you look at NPP government, their policy is not government stake. Their policy is to make sure that we don't rise to become international oil company. So Exploko was set up as a special purpose vehicle. Whatever may, they want to ensure that would they kill that one, and then government take, it's not their problem.
Okay, thank you.
That issue
sufficient for that intervention.
And I can go Litasco.
No,
because Litasco provided the guarantee. You do know they supply fuel to car power. You realize the Minister of Finance can raise issues in terms of 10 oil that was sold at low price. It is because they provided guarantee. Governments have provide fuel to car power. Go and buy our 10 oil at a discount to compensate for the guarantee you are providing.
Okay.
He didn't answer my question, but
yes.
we can move on.
Government policy not
Thank
to
you.
pay.
It's okay.
That
It's
is
okay.
the
Thank
NPP
you.
government
Thank you.
policy
I
not to
think
pay.
I think it's understood now. Okay, so we can move on now.
Yeah,
Can we?
move on, yeah.
Right. Thank you. Right. So I'm looking at what you have written.
Yes.
Yeah, how many points?
I need to address
circled.
some of this
Okay.
exposure.
Let's hear.
There is always
I call him Rebel Bentel.
okay.
Aka Energy Rebel Bentel. Yeah, let's hear him. Coincidentally, Imani raises the Aka Energy matter last week, and then the next week, the week following, it becomes AGM matter.
For that, I blame you.
How do you blame me? Sorry. So where do you sit as Imani when you analyze the issues that the minority brought up against this renegotiated deal?
Well, thank you. I have a statement, but I have my contribution too. So let me do my contribution. Slide number 9 of the presentation we had was on this particular issue. AGM, specifically on this. And we discussed it, those who watched saw that we said, how come we are renegotiating this? And at that point, what we said was that our information is that this will be renegotiated downwards. And we're asking why, what's the quid pro quo? And yes, last week on the show, when you were asking what was the whole danger about, what's the fuss about, you kept pushing on that. And I said I had 9 things I wanted to talk about. We focused everything on just, our mention of Dr. Sapon, and we couldn't go into some of these things. Oh, no, but I'm making a point. All these were, if you watch the presentation, we raised this. Now, at Imani, we don't pretend to be experts. We are citizens concerned and engaged.
No, you have experts who are fellows of Imani.
I said we don't. We have very serious experts on very many subject matters. But we don't claim expertise. But that's just to say, we don't just get up and talk. But we also know that not everything we say is entirely accurate because of how information is held, withheld, and restricted in this country. Which is why we like to put things in questions and we ask for clarification, etc. Look,
questions fair, but not conclusions. When you don't have full,
when we are clear,
facts.
we can make conclusions.
Yeah.
But when we are not clear, we will not make conclusions.
All right.
We'll get to that one. You just let me skip my trend. But again, so we put issues out and we want clarification. What we are discussing now, it is our respectful view that some persons in government are paid to clear these things, reduce them to language we can understand, and explain to us, if not to the general public, to Parliament. And in good time, this is what we have, this is what it means, this is what we are going to do, not a day or so before an ambush arrangement kind of, and the whole thing is, going up. Now, hoping that these things will happen, sometimes we hold back on some of these, pronouncements that we make. But in the particular case of the forum that we had, we realized that the time was basically running, so we had to come out. Let me make this point and make it clear. It is a good thing that Ghana is finding more oil and finding companies like ECA to help us get the oil. We like it. We are happy with it. All we are saying is that, are we sure we are getting the best deal from our oil? Because we've learned about all kinds of other people's experiences and what went on. Now, at this point, what I can say is that the fact that we are arguing so much and we can't even agree on the facts on the ground tells us that there's too much information asymmetry. I'm making my point to the effect that going forward, it will be useful, the ministry, GMPC, Petroleum Commission, and all the experts that are on our side as government, to do a very good job and to convince us that this is a good job. I have heard the arguments about, this AGM thing. And when we raised the question, we said, what are we getting for it? People are asking, is it even legal? Because the definition of materiality in the law means something. Now, if you say, oh, Samson, I'm buying a diesel car from you. Then I go and buy a petrol car from Kweku. Both of them cost me 100 cedis. Then I go back to Kweku and say, oh, I have a diesel filling station. Because of that, I'm going to convert the petrol car to a diesel car, but you will pay for it. it is my business strategy that is leading to me incurring that extra expense. It doesn't have to be Kweku's cost.
Is that the best example?
It's not the best example.
We're talking about fields that are closer to each other.
It's not the best example.
Okay.
But you see, oil, and that's why I was having this banter with Kweku. They're extremely complex. But my point is that somebody has to bring us to a point where we can all generally agree. So here's the thing, look. Governments have to act, okay? And when they act, we also have to ask questions. When we ask the questions, they should please give us, as best as they can, the answers. But as we speak right now, my understanding is that we are giving this up because, generally speaking, we will not be able to find the money to pay for it when the call comes up. The questions about whether this is material in the terms of the law.
We will not be able to find the money, and that's why we want to give it up. I thought we're pursuing a Ghana beyond aid. We're pursuing a policy where we want to be proud and proudly own our own, production.
I wanted to say that, but I picked what Kweku just said. That if the time comes for you to pay, would you have the money? Okay, and I've heard that too. That hey, we are going to take all of these things. If we find oil or we have to come now put up the money, will you have the money?
They have interest in other blocks, don't they?
You mean Eka?
Yeah.
Esploko?
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have interest.
The idea is
So
that
it's not as if they are being taken out in its entirety. They actually have interest.
Yes,
in
but
various other
yeah,
where
but
they
that's
are
another
spending
point.
money.
So this one is on the
It's
table
still
now.
building the capacity.
This one is on the table now. So so my point is upheld. That my point is that we are saying, oh, we don't think we will have the money. Okay, we are saying respectfully again that this is the GMPC that has just voted 43 million or so for CSR, when we don't know exactly what the CSR program is. Okay, so the issue is, are we getting the best in terms of our oil negotiation? Maybe we are, maybe we are not. We've asked the questions, and by the way, Imani feels totally vindicated. Because these are the things, and there were a number of other things that we also raised, and we said, we need our leaders to give us some answers. And Parliament, we mentioned in the forum that we think Parliament is the place where these hard questions must be asked. Honestly, I was a bit worried that this was sprung up the way it was, and it managed to get through. I am hoping that in future, we will not treat these things with such speed. Okay, so Parliament, I think earlier on, maybe Parliament should have brought these things up and asked the questions and got the clarifications before these things come to a head, and then we have to pass them by sitting overnight and all those things. But as far as I and my organization are concerned, I think we raised the issues. It is not over.
The suggestion is that, and the questioning is, why would Ghana give its oil deposits with potential, reserve of 1 billion barrels? That's equivalent to $65 billion at today's price to a so-called foreign investor who is claiming to invest only $4 billion. By that mantra of seeking to own our own destiny and do things, a proud African country, why would we not pay the investor 10 as it were, billion, is it, for, or $10 for every barrel? I don't know how they calculate it.
That's a service contract idea.
For every barrel the investor recovers from the ground, so that the investor gets $10 times 1 billion barrels, which will give $10 billion, while Ghana gets $40 times 1 billion barrels, which will give us $40 billion for the reserve.
You see, you've gone into more detail, and this is one of the options we have. If you say this, like the way we say it, somebody will tell you you're doing simple arithmetic, you don't understand what you're talking about, but you're absolutely right. This is similar to what Saudi Arabia does. And the point we're making that if you take even the present situation where we found extra oil, actually that is materiality in the context of the law, which should inure to our benefit. So it allows us to actually negotiate better, more favorable terms. These are the things we're putting out. So clearly you can see a certain unrest about how we are going about this. But, again, we vote, we give the country to leaders. we have to give them a certain amount of trust and hope that they do the best. But I think they should also keep talking to us and try and convince us that we are actually doing the best. There are a lot more numbers in terms of, this particular thing, but in order not to confuse the issues too much, we'll leave it here. What I think we should be doing, both Parliament and our executive, we need to engage better, and we need to be able to prove to Samson, myself, Kweku, people who are not oil experts, okay, that we are doing a better job negotiating our portion of this oil find.
All right, Doc, help us break down all the stuff you are writing here that I can see, and then we're trying to do something. We're trying to get a direct answer for Kweku's question, because it is important.
Okay, thank you very much. I've heard colleagues and other people talk on the matter. Question I'm asking myself from where I'm sitting is there a material change? That question has not been answered. What is the standard of materiality that requires renegotiation of a PA? That question has not been answered. And then I hear Kofi mentioning best deal, best deal. What is that best deal? When can we say that the country has the best deal under the arrangement? So until we are able to set out these baselines, it becomes difficult for the average Ghanaian to understand the argument. I can understand that as a nation, we need to have a best deal. Even in the fiscal terms that we mentioned here, what does it mean to us to have a royalty of 10%? What does it mean to us for GNPC to have a carrying interest of 15%? And if that carrying interest of 15% is not coming, what does it mean? Where does it leave us? My point is, let us try as much as possible to define these benchmark standards in such a simplistic term, in such a way that people would understand it. The technicalities are too many. We are doing a lot of push and pull, but people do not understand where we are going. Let us reduce the parliamentary legislative gymnastics. You see, I think consensus is consensus. If we think there are challenges, there's an issue, we should go all out and say it. We are not in favor of this. And then, that is it. I was reading through the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, and I was looking at the interpretation section, check whether material change has been defined. It has not been defined. So when you leave it loose like that, you give a window of opportunity for anybody to take advantage of the process. But what I think should happen now is let us define what is meant by material change in specific terms. Then after that, let us also come out in specific terms what constitutes the best deal for Ghana in quantitative and qualitative terms as far as renegotiation petroleum agreements in this country is concerned. The government gave a justification for intervention. Does the justification meet the best deal standard? The organization also gave a justification for renegotiation. Does it meet the material change standards? If we are able to resolve these two standard issues, then we can draw a very good conclusion that, look, as a country, we have a best deal or we do not have a best deal. Until that is done, then we may all be speculating.
Interesting. I also picked it because I was trying to look for what he had just mentioned. Because the questioning boils down to what constitutes material change.
Yes.
It is irresistible that the examples he gives clearly show what material change should be. But now, can we accept on reasonable basis that what is being given as a reason which should constitute material change, is that acceptable? And you use the vehicle example to show that it's not acceptable.
But let me deal with material change specifically.
Yes.
Material change is any change which significantly changes the dynamic, either financial or technical, of the oil.
So the source, where from this definition?
Oh, I'm coming.
Well, we need to ground it in law before we can proceed.
Let me just
you let him go on.
When you had a situation where Hess had finished,
all right,
but then Eka comes and finds new oil to the point where the new oils went all the way up to 1 billion barrels of recoverable assets possible.
Eka found new oil.
Okay. All right, so can we do this? Can we do this briefly? Briefly. Can we do this briefly?
Additional oil.
No, is that Kofi's definition of material change or legal definition?
I'm explaining.
Okay,
No, we need to define it in law. You understand?
Go to the
all right. So
Society of Petroleum Engineers.
just hold on briefly for me. those who were at the helm when these matters or question of it's up for you to pay, you can't find the money to pay, and all of those things. Alex Mould will have a better understanding of the situation and give Kwaku Bako the answer he seeks. Alex Mould is a former CEO of the GMPC. Thank you very much once again for answering our call to answer this very important question for us. How can you help us, sir?
Answering our call to answer this very important question for us. How can you help us?
Well, I did not tune in. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I did not tune in. I was just called that there was a discussion on this. I thought this matter was dead and gone, but now it has resurfaced with the new AGM issue. Let me clarify the HES issue first. When GMPC, when the government of Ghana asked GMPC to step in and take up the option of the 10%, GMPC did provision for it. One of the GMPC had to do was we had to do what we call an audit to make sure that this was the value. Although we had agreed with them that we will pay this, we had to make sure that the value that they were giving us was right. So we provisioned for it, and then we negotiated with them to make payments. They then came back and said, because of ITLOS, which is the border dispute with Ghana, they were not prepared to bring in the POD, but they wanted an extension to bring the POD in after the ITLOS ruling. Now, that meant that they could walk away if ITLOS ruling was against us. And there was no reason why GMC should pay them any money for them to be able to walk away with the money. So that was the reason why the delay was made. The delay was made as when they are ready to bring the POD, we will also be ready to make the payment. And then they decided in 2018 to sell to ACA. And they sold to ACA at $100 for 50%, which means that it would have been about $20 million for 10%. And they had offered us $47 million for 10%. I am sure if I had paid $47 million for 10%, ACA had paid $20 million for 10%, I would be somewhere at EOCO by now. So this is just one of the issues. It had nothing to do with GMC not having the money. GMC had money. And let me explain exactly how also financing is done in this industry. Once you have reserves, you can go to the market and raise money against the reserves. That's what every oil company does. That is what Tullow does. Tullow didn't have any money. Once they had reserves and interest in the reserves, they were able to go to their banks to raise the money. So the issue of GMPC not having money, or the issue of Parliament not giving GMPC the money through the PRMA, doesn't mean that GMPC couldn't go to the market, or government couldn't go to the market and raise money against the interest, against the reserves. That could be done. So the issue of GMC not having money should never come in. By the way, GMC did have the money. One of the issues was that the funds that GMPC had were tied to two transactions. Government was supposed to make payments to GMPC, and then GMPC would be able to relieve itself of those transactions. So GMPC did have over $150 million, which they could always have paid for the thing, provided the government gave GMPC the money to pay off the original obligations of Car Power and VRA. And through ESLA, VRA could have been paid the $47 million that was owed to the bank, and that was what the bank was holding our $47 million on. So we had the $47 million to pay for the 10% share. There was no doubt about that. So anybody says they have the money, it is absolutely not true. They should look at our balance sheet for 2015, 2016, and even 2017. The cash at the bank.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we can end it here.
It's very clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so
it has only reinforced the point that the money was there, but they didn't trigger it.
That's the question we asked at the forum. Because
okay,
of the
okay.
When the ITLOS ruling came and favored Ghana,
ITLOS was on and two other companies
okay,
that's what he just said.
too bad we don't have all day to discuss the issues here.
ITLOS was there.
Financial exposure.
The reason Dr. Dosai was saying there may have been the need to define material change in the law is important, because Kofi Bento says, for example, a business change ought not constitute material change.
It's a strategy, yeah.
Change in business. But you see, I've just been trying to read some of the legal definitions. And it does suggest to me, from some of the readings I'm making online now, suggests to me change in business could constitute material change. It depends on how
it's the subject matter. The materiality refers to the subject matter.
Okay, I get it.
Oil.
I get it. Yes.
Yeah. I just want to touch on some few issues.
So in a minute,
Big Brother raised.
in a minute, you wanted to talk about de-risk and a few matters.
First of all, is the field risky? It has been de-risked. In 2009, GMPC acquired the seismic data that AKE has done earlier. So, no, that...
What's the meaning of it has been de-risked?
That means the possibility that you will not get oil
doesn't exist.
No, that means the risk it has reduced drastically.
Yes.
Maybe if it is 80%, probably it's 40% that possible that you.
So should we be gaining for this?
It should be a gain.
Okay.
2, the financial exposure. The agreement was crafted, Exploco 24%. The agreement was crafted in such a way that the first 2 exploratory wells, Exploco will be carried.
Okay.
That means Exploco will not pay anything. If a discovery is made, Exploco has good. We all know EO Group for 2.5% in Tallow.
Okay.
They got $300 million.
All right.
The second one is the financial exposure.
What does that mean?
The financial exposure. I believe that if GMPC is not being used, we shouldn't be talking of financial exposure. In 2017, GMPC paid $100 million to Bost to settle its debts. This could have been used for the core activities of GMPC.
Okay.
2, in 2018,
so many
GMPC paid $60 million to Bost again to pay its debt. We know Bost is downstream. GMPC shouldn't have any hands. That is $160 million. As we see today, government is using GMPC as a vehicle to raise $220 million to pay for cost of fueling our thermal plants.
All right.
Yes.
So if GMPC is set for upstream industry, and you sum this, that is over 300 million.
We can conveniently,
and that could go a long way
this discussion
to reduce the financial exposure.
At this point, but there was one thing you raised. I want you to answer that in 30 seconds. You mentioned a Quad Petroleum. Quad Petroleum, a company that is getting 5% stake in this deal. And you said because the company was formed less than 1 month ago, it was not deserving of 5%. What's the
I use certain.
Has he said that here?
No.
They raised it at
on the floor. I raised it.
They said that
at the committee level, we asked certain issues. 1 was the financial capability. 2 was the owners of the company. And 3, when was it registered? When you don't use the registrar general to determine the owner, beneficial ownership, and with the exposure from this company in Central America.
Anyway, beneficial ownership.
The exposure. When we get a petroleum agreement and we go to the registrar general, we go behind to find out who the true owners are, or whether they are politically affected persons.
Yeah, so what is the problem? It was registered or incorporated, as you say, on the 10th of April.
What we made clear was that the registration seemed to tally with the process to get this PA. So it is like the purpose for registering the company was just to acquire.
That is, you suspect.
Yeah, that is the
suspicion.
Yes.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, that is what we indicated. The way it went.
So why don't you do your work but simply raise suspicion?
Please, we're given these documents on Thursday morning.
Is it their incorporation that is asking about?
Do you get my point? On Thursday morning. If it is on Thursday morning, what due diligence can we make?
Okay.
That is why I said that.
Can you confirm that they said
shocked.
it was incorporated on the 10th of April?
Yes, I'm showing you the document.
It's 10th of April?
10th of
So,
okay, all right. And what is material about that?
I haven't said anything about that.
No, but
if that's the information you want.
Suspicion.
Right.
Driven,
Yeah.
yes.
So I've left it.
But is it fair that he says they should have been giving more time so they could, go behind
that, yes.
and to know the beneficial owners because they think there's something
Generally,
fishy.
yes, and it fits into the same point that we are making, that we seem to be rushing and tripping over issues concerning our oil, and that is wrong. That's the whole point about the whole forum, that we need to be more deliberate about this. We need to have time, and I think Parliament is the center of that deliberation, so that all this information will be out in good time.
You know who owns it?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll take a break. We'll take a break. We'll come back to deal with the dirty Mevimpina oil result and Great Code debt quickly, very briefly about those, and then we'll move on to the other subjects to discuss. Press freedom, the safety of journalists, and also the housing, affordable housing situation. We'll be right back. You're welcome back, and this is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. Just a few of some messages that I can share with you here. This one says that the AGM provisions are comparable to the ExxonMobil field. That was approved by the same committee members who are now raising issues regarding the AGM. The average chance of success for a well is 20%. AGM are drilling 4 wells in a licensed area that has no discoveries. The likelihood is that they will discover nothing. Oh, but the de-risking that we have been told about, what happened, the water depths in that area are greater than 2,800 meters. Is it?
That is no matter, and they signed.
Or is it million? Incredibly challenging. The well's deepest development is 2,900. The likelihood is that they will spend $300 million for no benefit. No benefit? Okay. Right. Thank you, Gabi, for this view on it. And this one says that it is unfortunate that I don't feel the resource persons are making an in-depth this dissection of the issues at hand. As resource owners, we could do better with the negotiations with these issues. It is entirely not accurate to state that we do not have the money. In any case, we do have the resources, and that is enough, a bargaining power. Okay, we'll share some other messages later.